A very warm good afternoon and welcome to everyone at the evACAD IIM Kashipur Net Zero webinar series. Net Zero is shaping, today's session we will focus on how Net Zero is shaping in Indian corporates. It's a peer-to-peer exchange on India's hard-to-abate sector. And over next 1 hour, let's understand one, why it is important, why do we really need this, and what are the real life transitions these industry practitioners are doing in day-to-day work in order to reduce the emission and move towards a more sustainable tomorrow. To start with, I would like to focus on the scale of the emission. Globally, if you will look into this chart, the electricity and heat are still the single largest source of emission, about third of the total. But if you will look into the orange slice, which is the manufacturing, construction, Indian processes, on top of this, when I add hard to abate sectors, almost the emission reaches out to be 30% globally. And this is even before when I'm counting the electricity and the heat consumption of these industries. This is the area where we will be really focusing on today's webinar. Let's understand what are the electric efficiency or inefficiency issues here and how are these being tackled. When we look into specifically hard to abate sector, or like recently we like to call them the possible to abate sectors, within these 30%, steel and cement are the two heavyweight lifters globally, with about 26 gigaton is steel and 24 gigatons is cement annually. When we look and compare this to Indian context, the steel runs about 38% more carbon intensive per ton than the global average. We are still emitting more than what globally it is being done. And this is not a very niche problem. If you will look into producer and the consumer way, India is the second largest producer and consumer both of steel and cement. So this is what the scale and the stake we are talking about. This is what issue we are trying to solve when we have this demand, when we have this requirement, and still we want to reduce the emissions. How do we navigate through here? When we look into India as a whole country, we are the third largest emitter globally after China and US. While our per capita consumption or emission is 2.5 tons against the 17.6 tons of US. But this is not about India's overconsumption. It is about how industries like energy, agriculture, manufacturing together are driving our footprint, and how the hard to abate sectors like steel, cement, chemicals, ceramics, they are sitting at the heart of it. And how do we really solve this problem? When it comes to what are the areas where the corporates can really help in decarbonizing, there are three areas where we can work on. One is moving towards cleaner power and fuel switching. These are the repeatable levers. Second would be, how do you improve your processes? How do you improve your material innovations? How do you bring circularity into your businesses? How do you take care of the life cycle assessment and reduce emissions at each of this scale? And then when you cannot reduce the emissions, how do you really remove the emissions from the system? What are the carbon capture options which you are using? And this is not something every company is kind of copy pasting, or these are the only ways of working on, but these are the primary physics in which we can work on. These are the primary levers where we can focus on. When it comes to today's topic, and when we talk about why it is really important, we really have to understand there are four pressures which are converging fast than the planning cycles. What we really see now is there is a market demand. There is a huge business demand to increase the production, to increase the capacity. And at the same time, we are talking about a pressure to cut the emissions. And this is kind of counter-effective. You need to be very innovative. You need to be creative to reduce your innovations, but it requires time. It requires scale in order to reach there. We are looking into regulatory and investor scrutiny. The regulations are now becoming very prominent in India. There are BRSR requirements. There are other requirements which are pressuring the companies to follow the mandates. And also, when it comes to a climate risk, it's no more a line item in your reporting. It's something really where industries have to rethink how do we become more resilient? How do we create those investor alignments when it comes to getting those financing? Similarly, energy market, like we all know, the energy cost, supply shifts are very dynamic. It's outpacing our planning cycles. And this affects the cost of the production. This affects our daily balance sheets. So how are we navigating towards energy markets? And finally, for the industries who are into export, the export dynamics is also evolving. There are new CBAM regulations, export regulations are becoming very prominent. The countries who are taking in are becoming more stricter on our emissions. So these are the drivers or the levers which are forcing industries to innovate. And in this today's session, let's understand from the expert panels that beyond the national targets, NDC commitments, beyond individual commitments, how are the CXO really changing their sector? How is their sector evolving? How is it booming? With this context, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel of panelists today. We have Mr. Lavish Ahuja, who is the CSO of Dalmia Cement Bharat Limited. A very interesting conversation came with when we were talking to Mr. Lavish yesterday. They don't look at cement as a hard to abate sector, but they look cement as a possible to abate sector. And that really reflects what is their mindset as an organization, how they see in every problem or every challenge as a possible opportunity. And this is something they have been practicing. The sustainability decarbonization pathway is something they have been doing way since before the compliance or regulatory push came into the picture. Uh, Welcome, Lavish sir. Our second panelist is Mr. Naveen Alawat. He uh, he is the president and CSO of Jindal Steel Plant. Jindal Group uses RISE ESG framework, which focuses on responsible governance, inclusive growth, sustainable environment, and ethical partnerships. Uh, they focus on resilience, they focus on climate resilience, and they are moving towards generating those 3 4 star green steel certifications in order to bring that change which we are looking into. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Naveen, sir. Our third panelist today is Mr. Sham Sundar Goria. He is the CEO of Simpolo Vitrified Tiles Private Limited. Simpolo focuses on green technology. They are focusing on how the clean technology can be innovated in order to reduce the energy consumption. They are focusing on bringing more greener material when it comes to tile production. Let's hear more from him. What are the challenges they face on the ground and how are they innovating? Welcome, Sham sir. Our final panelist for today is Mr. Prasenjit Pure, Head of Technology from Clariant IGL Speciality Chemicals Private Limited. If I have to talk about their company, they are the only manufacturer of bioethanol glycol made from the bioethanol, and they are the largest producer of bio-based ethylene dioxide. So their organization is not retrofitting towards decarbonization. Their core product comes from green, and this is how they have defined their strategy and journey. And this is how it highlights that how decarbonization, right material pick, can be part of your core DNA rather than a reply to the changing environment. In this panel, we will also focus on understanding how decarbonization is not something which is driven by external pressure, but how it gives a company a edge to de-risk their uh, issues, how a company can become climate resilient. In the current world where there is so much of dynamic things happening, when you move towards RE, not only your cost becomes lower, but on a long run, your dependence on fuel, market sentiment, supply chain, all those things become independent, and that's how you become more resilient. We will have a more detailed discussion around these. We have our moderators with us, Mr. Rahul Bagadia, who is chairman of pManifold Group, focused on creating clean energy, new hydrogen, e-mobility solutions globally. And we have Professor Vaibhav Bamoria, faculty and chairperson, economics area from IIM Kashipur. Over to you, Rahul and Professor Vaibhav.
Thank you very much, Isha. Again, warm welcome to all our panelists and all dear audiences. I think, as Isha has already laid down, like the importance of hard-to-abate industry, or let's call industry, in overall running the economics of nation, and their usage of electricity and derived emissions is something that needs to be worked. And this issue needs to be addressed when most of these industries are in phase of growth in terms of almost doubling and tripling their capacity in a very short time. And the challenge is to how do they kind of do this cost competitively and reducing their energy intensity and also carbon intensity, right? So I think that is where the net zero mix kind of comes into it. So again, very interesting panel. Like we have from steel, represented by Jindal Steel, Naveen. We have from cement, Dalmia Group, right? I mean, and these are the market leaders. Then we have from ceramics, Simpolo, again one of the fast premium brand ceramic tiles player. And fourth is the specialty chemicals industries represented by Clariant, IGL. So I think we actually could not have asked more for this four big sets of industries and amongst the top market leaders in sharing their views. So thank you again, dear panelists, for making time. Uh, I think my first set of question, and between me and Vaibhav, I think we will try to understand like what makes that industry and its process unique, and also energy intensive. So maybe Lavish, we can start with you. The kind of first talking about the scale of operations of Dalmia Group in cement, and then kind of helping us and the audience really understand the value chain and the carbon and energy intensity of it, and what are the drivers for Dalmia Group to really kind of get onto the decarbonization and take an active net zero commitment, Lavesh?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. A special thanks to organization, Isha, Rahul, and Professor Webb. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And cement sector, as I was discussing with you yesterday, it has been always classified as a hard to abate, and then we always felt that in the very beginning itself, we are starting with the negative connotation. So let's try to change, work on how we are looked at. So, and that's where the real thing starts, when you start thinking positive about what you want to do. And this is how this word was coined. It was not coined by me. In fact, it was coined by our ex-CEO, Mr. Mahendra Singhi. He's a quite person in this fraternity. So he's the one who is ardent supporter of this new terminology. So we have just inherited from him and taking forward the journey. And now, Rahul, you have asked a very interesting question. Maybe I'll quickly start with the journey of Dalmia. Dalmia currently stands at a capacity of 55.5 million ton of cement. Very recently, we have acquired the JP assets from Adani Cement. So that's how this is a very new addition to our group, almost a month and a half back. But in terms of the growth trajectory, we aspire to become 75 million ton by 2028 and eventually 110 million ton by 2031. So that's what Isha was mentioning, that these sectors are now going for doubling and tripling the capacity. So we stand exactly in that en route. So everything is going to be doubled in terms of our resources consumption and the output. But again, the trajectory needs to be more, let's say, responsible. We do not want to keep that luxury of expanding the resource consumption and the emission with the same range. And that's what has been always a driving force, which directly comes from the promoter's office. Although when we started this journey at that time, we didn't had any legislation which would have forced upon us to think through an alternative way of growth. But this was purely, I would say, management mindset that we should be a company with difference. And that difference was basically defined in the form of decarbonization. And I think that approach has worked quite well for us. Um, when I was a student of sustainability, we used to hear theoretically that sustainability also makes business sense. It's not just a PR exercise or mitigating risk. But Dalmia, when I joined Dalmia, I could actually see that how it has actually benefited from a bottom line. So decarbonization is straight away the business efficiency, and business efficiency is money. So why would promoter not like it? Let's be very clear on that. So he was fully convinced that let's take decarbonization with the same approach as we take as a business expansion. So I want you to come up with a clear-cut plan. That was a message to the management, and then management also took it to a stride. And in 2018, Dalmia made a global commitment amongst the heavy industry to go for carbon negativity by 2040. Again, at that stage, it was felt more like a rhetorical statement because you come from hard-to-abate, if I use that term one more time, and you are talking about carbon negativity. So is it like a statement to attract people's attention, or do you actually mean it? So we were questioned, and I'm till date also questioned. And trust me, this commitment still gives us sleepless night because whatever easy options or low-hanging fruits are there, I'm sure we are much ahead of others. But the next stage of transition would focus on the deep decarbonization initiatives, and I'm sure we will cover those aspects as we go forward. Those areas are not just purely dependent on our intent. They are dependent on multiple factors, a lot of externalities, and this is what keeps us on toes. And we have started calling that journey as an aspirational journey. But by no means adding a word aspiration gives us an excuse of not meeting the target. We are committed, and cement, as you know, brings a unique challenge. Unlike many other sectors, here the 60% of emissions are an outcome of chemical reaction or a chemistry. So as long as you are producing the cement through limestone, there is going to be a CO2 generated, no matter what you do from the energy point of view. So I see those 40% as a low-hanging fruit, and the real crux would come when we are left with no option but to target those process emission. But having said that, we do not leave any stone unturned in capitalizing whenever that becomes realistic for the sector, and whenever it becomes, I'm seeing Dalmia still be front ending that initiative. I think that would be my take as of now. Thank you, Rahul.
Thanks so much, Lavish. That's such a nice way to put it, and tell us about how the externalities are sort of also driving us sort of making the choices. I would now want to move to sort of the other side of this this story, and I would want Mr. Prasanjit to come in and talk about IGL. They Clariant IGL, they started off as a company which was sort of supplying the bioethanol based sort of specialty chemicals, and sort of, so it's a company that sort of provides the solutions rather than the challenges. Mr. Prasanjit, I would like to hear from you that sort of what are really the challenges that you are facing, and is it really that sort of people are picking up your solutions as solutions to their problems, or do you also have to meet cost parity with the conventional sort of chemicals that are there? So in the sense that sort of, is it really that sort of the green alternative is premier alternative, or is it just, still we are looking at the bottom line and we're taking the decisions? And, we want to hear about what really Clariant IGL is doing. Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me in this very good event. See, Clariant IGL is a joint venture company between Clariant and India Glycols Limited. And Clariant is having major stake into that joint venture. So it is, I can say it is Clariant because all the policies and everything is governed by Clariant. So if I start, if I say about the activity of Clariant IGL especially, so Clariant as a whole, they have very stiff target for decarbonization, not only for Clariant IGL, but also for globally. So they have multiple manufacturing locations across globe, and Clariant IGL is the only site of Clariant where we can produce the product from bio origin. And not only for Clariant, it is the only company across globe who can manufacture bio product in the world. So see, bio and fossil, these are the two parallel site for the production. So Clariant is producing bio product in Clariant IGL, and they are also producing fossil-based product across other manufacturing site of the globe. So the challenge is that in India, if I see in domestic market, see, we are the manufacturer of only bio-based raw material, and other manufacturers who are in India, they are manufacturing from fossil-based raw materials. So fossil-based raw materials is always having some advantage in terms of cost of the product. And if we consider the bio-based, of course, it is always a high cost product. So it's a major challenge. If I see chemistry-wise, if I am producing a product A from bio-based origin and the same product A is manufactured from petro-based or fossil-based, chemistry-wise, there is no difference. Performance-wise, there is no difference. So it is the question of sustainability and decarbonization, I would say. So the cost is a major factor, and the Indian industries who are consuming such product for manufacturing many of the chemicals, I would say all sorts of chemicals across in our daily life we used to use. So they are very much cost conscious. They do not need any low footprint material or raw materials at their end. They need a product which can perform in their final product and which can have cost competitive. So that is the major target. Any of the Indian consumer for our chemicals, I would say this is their target. Apart from some multinationals like Procter and Gamble, Unilever, they have some concern about the sustainability. They want product with sustainable low carbon footprint, but at the same time, they are also cost conscious. Their products should be cost competitive in the market. So that is a big challenge, but irrespective of that challenge, the Clariant has taken a very stiff target by 2050 to become a net zero company. And this target has been divided into two. By 2030, we have a target. And by 2050, it should reach to net zero. For that, slowly the product which are manufactured at different locations of the globe, those products are transferred to Kashipur, or I would say in India, so that we can manufacture that product based on bio raw materials, so that carbon footprint would be lower and lower than the fossil waste product. So 85% of the total portfolio is our target by 2030. That should be from bio origin. So being a bio origin, so they have another target also. At in the beginning, it was told by Isha that the electricity and manufacturing process consumes or emits maximum carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas. So we have a steep target there also, how to reduce that carbon emission by adopting a unique manufacturing process where we can consume less steam, less electricity, and by different raw materials, means locally available raw materials for local to local and local to global, so that the scope 3 emission can also be reduced. And number 3, we are sourcing the raw materials with the suppliers who are only having concern about sustainability. So by this way, we are encouraging the suppliers to consider the sustainability at their end also. And we have other targets also in the operation, for example, reduction in water, reduction in electricity, reduction in wastage, and reduction in effluent also. So we have target, we are slowly converting the electricity from fossil waste to green electricity, for example, hydel power and the solar energy, although we are sourcing from state electricity board by mass balance concept. And the steam that is produced here in IGL, all the utilities we are getting from IGL, steam is produced by burning the slop, which is the wastage of molasses fermentation. So that part is burnt and energy is generated, and by that way steam is produced. That steam is declared as green steam, and that part is consumed in the manufacturing of our product. So these are the many steps we have taken, although by 2030, whatever target we have taken, even we have crossed that target also. And these targets are continuously monitoring by the global team. There is a team, sustainability team. They used to monitor almost every week. And
this is awesome, Prasanjit. Like what I really liked is like while world is talking about scope 1 and 2, Clariant IGL has gone into scope 3 by kind of bringing the bio base in your feedstock and really making one of the world's only kind of bio-derived bioethylene oxide and further derivative products. So I think that is great. We will come back with more understanding on the cost economics of doing all these things competitively. Let me bring Naveen Ehlawat, sustainability head from Jindal Steel. Naveen, steel forms the backbone of most infrastructure globally. India is among the second largest producer and consumer of steel. So and we know that in terms of our emissions, because of mostly India is a blast furnace oriented steel production. And we are fairly high above global average on our carbon emissions per ton of steel. How Jindal Steel, which is kind of acting as a lighthouse with a lot of its decarbonization initiatives, what were your drivers to really get onto that actively? Of course, the compliant market is coming, but your guys have been acting much earlier than compliance. So what are those drivers, Naveen?
Thanks, Rahulji, for the question. So, what Isha was actually showing initially, I think just taking a cue from that. So there are two choices that we have. First is to keep on battling with the complex choices, or start with the quick wins, the things which are within your boundaries, within your plant boundaries. So what are within our plant boundaries? Number one, energy efficiency. It is within us. We are the one who can control the energy efficiency in terms of putting up variable frequency drive, in terms of putting up automation, in terms of making our, as you have said, the blast furnaces, they are young. We can just make them smarter. We can make them Gen Zs, Gen Zs of the blast furnaces. That is where I think we have to make them, as you have said, when you talk about the growth path, not for our country, you talk about the country 2030, we have to be we have to reach 300 million tons of steel capacity. Today we are at 165 million tons, so almost double. You talk about the per capita consumption, we are at 96 kilos, India. The threshold, global threshold is 220 kilos. When you talk about the developed country, by 2047, it means that you have to compete with the likes of US, where the per capita consumption is 550, China, 540, Japan, 600, Indonesia. You talk about these countries, and you will find that they are almost double than the threshold, and we are half of the threshold. You see the upside that we have to do. So I think we have to manage around this trilemma in terms of the growth, in terms of affordability, because we are where we are today, and of course the sustainability has to grow in. So energy efficiency, very very specific to your question, is definitely, we believe, can be a quick win for us. Number two is driving the operational efficiencies, how we can consume more and produce, consume more and produce more. That is how we have to really drive it. Consume less, produce more. How you do it? You do it using the better quality products, or you beneficiate. Iron ore, we know that it is like 62% iron content. We beneficiate it. Instead of using the iron ore or sinter, you maximize the use of pellets in the blast furnace, and that is exactly where we are focusing. Producing waste to wealth, super important. Slag coming out from blast furnace, making cement, going forward integration. Slag coming out from the electric arc furnaces, making the aggregates out of that slag. And when we'll go to the next phase of questions, I'll tell you that what different things we are doing with that electric arc slag. The slag coming out from blast furnaces going for cement manufacturing. So operational efficiency driving is super important, along with resource efficiency. You create your model in such a way. You spoke about the scope 3 emission. How scope 3 emission will be reduced? You can only reduce the scope 3 emission when you work on on the Toyota production system. When your entire value chain is within 50, 100 kilometer radius of our plant, that is how you reduce your scope 3 emission, right? So that is where we are doing, and I will come to those examples later on. I just want to keep the thrill on as we move forward. So this is on the operational efficiency side. Then renewable energy, we know that India is in top three. When we talk about solar, we have reached to top two. Wind, we are basically at four. And you talk about the injection of renewable energy into the grid, we have almost reached to 50%, right? We talk about the renewable energy. So we are at the peak. So capitalizing this ecosystem that is building up and still in process of building up. So that is actually one of the lever, and I'm pleased to inform you and the guys who have joined that we are about to commission 1.5 gigawatt of solar power plant in Bikaner, Rajasthan, and we'll start injecting these electrons to power our steel operation across our Angul, Odisha site and the Raigad, Chhattisgarh site. These are our mother plants, and basically the expansion that we are going to do in Angul as we move forward. And then by later half of this year, by end of this year, 700 megawatt of wind power plant coming up in Karnataka, that will be live by end of this year. So we will be injecting 2.2 gigawatt of renewable energy into to power our operation. By end of next year, we will be adding another 800 megawatt of wind. So by end of next year, we will be 3 gigawatt of renewable energy into the operation. So these are in our hands. And as we say, all these business, you talk about solar, wind, we are in money. It is not that we are doing any favor. It is in we are in the money. So when we talk about in the money, you talk about the grid, the thermal levelized cost of energy now, it is close to 5 odd rupees. You talk about the blend of solar and wind, it is coming around 3.5 rupees. So clear winner of by 25 to 30%. And then on top of that, if you bring the revenues from the carbon credits in terms of carbon credits plus going to the start hitting the 3-star 4-star category of steel, the upside is even more, right? So this is the second thing. And then the third basically lever for us is going to be the carbon capture utilization. And then the followed with the last and the final one, when we have to really do the final packaging of our steel product, that is the utilization of the green hydrogen into our operation. So these are the 4 streams that we are focusing right now, along with the waste, along with the resource efficiency, and so absolutely knocking these 4 work stream one by one. And maybe in the second basically round, I will explain you what exactly we are doing across these 4 streams. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Perfect, Naveen. I think this was great. Naveen, can you just remind us the ambitions and targets that Jindal Steel would have taken for net zeros?
Yes, so we have taken 2047 as a net zero, way basically ahead of our country ambition. And as Lavish has said, so possible to abate, or basically easy to abate. So all these things, as we move forward, and when hard to say, it is not that we really take pride by saying hard to abate. It is about there are some stoichiometry chemical reactions that are happening, very very difficult to sort of change that. Calcium carbonate, when it calcined, it is going to produce CO2, right? No one can change that.
Yeah.
So how you better utilize it? So it is about really bringing the overall packaging, seeing what is possible, and still aspiring to become a developed country. It is very very important. We haven't even hit the peak of the emissions. Whatever we say, you see today you talk about per capita consumption of cement, steel. As I said, we are still half. China might have seen the peak of their emission. We haven't. We have to still see those peaks. So now, how this augmentation of the capacity that we have to do, how responsibly we can do it, how sustainably we can do it. And I think we have a strong chance. China may not having may not having the strong chance when they start augmenting this capacity, because all these levers that we spoke about just now, those levers were not with them at that time. But now we have these levers with us. So we can deploy these levers and keep on continuing augmenting our capacity. That should be the mantra. And the last, not the least, is how at the end of the day make these incremental capex and finally the levelized cost of production affordable to our consumers. Super important. We make a Rolls Royce. There are only 10 Indians who can buy a Rolls Royce in a day. But if we make a Honda City, Maruti Suzuki, there are lakhs of people and crores or millions of people who will be buy those. So this is also very very important.
Great,
Wow.
great, Naveen.
Excellent perspective, sort of on what our ambition should be, and, what is possible, instead of challenges, looking at the opportunities also. And, that brings me to Shyamji and this very, very unique, industry of tiles. It's located also usually characterized by, sort of more by private entrepreneurship than by government support. So Shyamji, can you just come in and tell us about the challenges and opportunities that you see that the tile industry and Simpolo in particular, sort of you're facing, and what your plans are?
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much to Ishaji and Vaibhavji, and for giving the opportunity, Rahulji, to share the ceramic industry challenges and the process, so that we can be the part of the sustainability. Because you see, in the ceramic industry, if you talk a few years ago, there was no sustainability word in this industry. But now it's very good, and we are also working in this one. So in the ceramic industry, and we have the 30 to 40% energy use in the terms of the electricity and gas. And also because we are the ceramic industry, the tiles industry require the more heat from the beginning process to the final process. So we are working on that one, and we have just started the sustainability and for the energy carbon emission the last 2-3 years, and we have the separate department to handling this one. And in that case, and if we talk about the ceramic industry, and there is in the 2020, that is around the 30,000 crores of the share in the Indian market. Now it's growing very fast because the ceramics tiles are the requirement is the common requirement for the domestic as well as the international. So now that is the around 65,000 crores of the revenue, the right now the market share the India, and out of that there are the 50,000 crores of the share from the Morbi. We are staying in the Morbi, and there are the more than 1,000 companies, the tiles manufacturers here, and there is the most important thing is that how we work for the carbon emission, how to work for the sustainability. So we are also working in this one, and we are starting from the electricity, because we start for the sustainability work the last 2 years, and at that time our energy consumption was around the 5.45 crores yearly, and out of that we are covering for the green energy in the form of the solar energy and the wind energy, and that is around 2.7 crores units we are covering from there. But now the ceramic industry challenge is how to reduce our gas consumption, because before that we were using in the coil, we were using the gas form in that one. So it's an example for the ceramic industry. Now we have converted the waste in the biomass and replaced the totally coil consumption. That is our big achievement.
So Shyamji, just let me come in for a minute over here. So with the war going on and sort of the war restarting, sort of Strait of Hormuz things are happening. So with this gas and this sort of the green alternative also make a difference to strategic outlook of organizations like Simpolo over time? Does this seem like a de-risking strategy also? You can maybe just reply to that while you continue.
The strategy is also like that. Even because the crisis, the last few months there, the crisis was very high. So we are working on the other options also, and we are working to reduce the consumptions of the gas, electricity, and we are finding the replacement for the gas, the option for gas usage. So we are going the electricity for the electric kilns, because there is the requirement is the around 1200 degree temperature for firing the tiles. So we cannot directly use we cannot convert 100% from the gas to the electricity or the other options, but we are sharing some partial percentage of the electricity, and we are working for the green hydrogen also, so that we can get some option for that. So there are the opportunity, and our target is that by the 2030 to replace for the total the electricity, decarbonization, and renewable energy, and then our suppose we are thinking to the net zero by the 2047. That was the goal of government also, Viksit Bharat. So we are thinking in that direction also, and I hope we are going to achieve this target by the stepwise, so that in the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, we are making the target and reaching that one step by step. In other hand, suppose we talk about the green the environment and the product, because we are going to export the tiles in the worldwide. So they also ask us what you are doing for the sustainability, because from the tiles industry, that is that this is the new in India, but in the Europe and the US, that is not new. They are working the last so many years in this direction, and this is the opportunity for us. And this opportunity, suppose we are facing our the gas is, we are importing the gas around the 80-90% gas we are importing. So if we find some options in India, that is also for the good for our economy, and this is also the working the good path for the decarbonization. And we are also working for the biomass, the agro waste, that is the boosting our agriculture, that's the boosting our suppose there is the India is the agriculture country, so we have the opportunity for that one also. And this is also the fuel economic for us, that is that is become so that we can make our tiles and we can boost our industry, and so that we are working in that direction also.
Great. I'd just like to move back to Lavish and the cement sector, and we'd like to figure out, sort of about the net zero solution and economics. How are you, using these to, sort of figure out which solutions will work for you, which solutions you're going to bet on. So, sort of, are you using some metrics there? How are you really, sort of trying to understand which is still going to give you, sort of take the business ahead?
Thank you, Professor Weber. Again, we basically divide this decision making to two aspects. The first aspect is where we already have solutions in place. For example, if I have to again go back to my original statement that we have one problematic part of emission, which is the 60% process emission. Now, those at the moment are out of any consideration because it depends on a lot of externalities, the finance, the technology, and everything. But if I bring back to the remaining 40%, which are purely energy related, be it electrical and be it thermal. So obviously, the efficiency part is always something which is a low hanging fruit. But again, to a stage where the marginal cost of the next solution, whether it makes sense for us to do or not, because as you proceed, the gains do diminishes, and then you will end up spending much more money without getting the required input. So then you look at expending a little bit more and see the wider solutions at place. For if I take specifically from a cement point of view, for me, the remaining 40% efficiency can be gained with conventional energy pumps, high energy perfect pumps, and then the other option for me is to look at the alternative fuels. Then I have the option of looking at low heat waste recovery solutions. So I have these multiple levers available with me, but trust me, they all come with their own unique challenges. Okay, and it's not just purely dependent on the cost, but there are other factors associated to it. If I have to further break it down, the AFR part, the AFR, yes, it gives me multiple solutions. It solves the problem of circularity. It gives me an alternative material to my conventional fuel, but the liability it brings in, because the quality per se is not consistent. Then the calorific value is varying, and then you have a lot of detrimental elements also which comes along with this, which can result into the process upsets and process disturbance. So I have to have a lot of systems in place before I can feed that material to the kiln, which is the main clinkerization aspect. Now, that also brings both technical as well as the economic challenge, because if I end up spending too much money in processing, then perhaps I eat away the whole benefit which this particular material gives me as a replacement to the coal. Likewise, the waste heat recovery, I mean, yes, for high heat temperatures, yes, the conventional solutions are existing, and all my kilns have waste heat recovery boiler. But what do I do with the heat which comes at a lower temperature? Now, what kind of solutions do I have? Because as an industry, I think I have to take care of every last degree possible and convert into meaningful. So all these elements, Professor Weber, work in parallel, and we sort of do permutation and combination, keeping in mind how it is economically justified. And also on top of it, we also add to the layer that we have certain carbon reduction plan in place for the year. So we keep that also in mind and add an element of carbon cost to it in deciding whether this is economically viable or not. So we do that jugglery and then try to deliver what is needed as a part of business plan for the year.
Okay. Great. And with that, I'd like to go back to the steel sector and Naveen ji. And, Naveen ji, similarly, you would also be probably be trying to look at, different type of metrics. But, also not just that, since the pressure and the vision has been there, what really do you see, sort of the board looks as capability of leaders and, capability of the top management that is different from what sort of they were looking at, say, about say a half a decade or a decade ago, right? So yeah.
No, I think, no, thanks, Professor Saab, for your question. See, I think board is very clear. I think it's more of a top-down. See, this particular thing, it is more of a top-down approach, and the promoters or the management, especially the board, has to be aligned that yes, this is not a choice, no, anymore. It is about imperative. It is absolutely imperative. When we have to talk about CBAM, especially for steel, cement, and aluminum, it is imperative. You have to start warming up yourself. You have to start doing, you have to start making incremental step, and you have to start focusing on your carbon intensity, starting with the baseline and clearly chalking out that what exactly, how you are going to reduce. Because customers are asking, they are clearly asking us that please give us the certificate verified by a third party auditor, and now the pre-verification is going on as we speak, and we are giving those certificate to the customer. So I think board is very clear that it is absolutely must, and there have to be a clear pathways, clear roadmap how you are going to reduce your carbon intensity, starting from the baseline and going to your final destination of 2047 in our case. So this is very, very clear. I think there is no second thought on that. Number one. Number two, I think once you set the visibility and the line of sight, I think it is very important that you take it to the ground level. If all these things stay within the boardroom, it is not going to work. It is about how coherently the central government and the state government work. That is how it has to work. So when it comes to the ground zero, it is all about doing a township. It is all about the outreach program that it is my responsibility as the CSO, talking to the HODs, aligning their annual KRAs. That is again the executive site in charge of that site, aligning their KRA, making those things as part of his KRAs and KPIs, so that there is a weightage given to that. And that is how it goes to the engineer level, field engineer, site manager, and to the worker. And that is how we are driving it, along with the safety. And also, I just want to give you an example, interesting example, because this is very, very important. Like Mr. Jindal, who is the chairman, he clearly set an agenda that you look, this PM 2.5, this AQI, addressing the air quality index, though it doesn't feature into our overall BRSR and annual plans, but he clearly said that look, we have to make our plants in the garden rather than making garden inside our plant. A plant has to be within the garden, and we have to ensure that all the back filters, all the DFDC has to work. So I'm pleased to inform you that we have just started. We have rolled out the phase one, investing close to 10 odd million dollars in one plant, and followed by investing another 10 odd million dollars in the second plant, our main plant in Angul. So 20 odd million dollars. If you ask me what is the business case, there is no business case. reducing the PM 2.5, the stack emission, by below 15 milligram per normal meter cube, and the fugitive emission to 40 microgram per meter cube. It is not, there is no business case, but it definitely has a business case in terms of increasing the productivity of the workers working on the ground, and also the workers, and plus how the community basically outreach, that how they perceive us. They know that we are growing, but because if they see those the dark smoke coming out from the stack, that is no good. So this $20 million is just basically we are investing just to ensure that we make a better place. So what I'm saying, that it is not that all the time we have to come to those business metrics of ROE, ROI, ROC. Sometimes I think you have to also go beyond that, taking care of your productivity, taking care of your basically health of your workers, and creating an ecosystem, an infrastructure in such a way that it is well respected from the people working on the ground to the children who are basically playing in the colony nearby.
Thank you, Naveen. I think that was uh, quite well. Of course, if time permitting, Naveen, I will take next questions later on your coal gasification approach, which is very, very unique. But let me go back to Prasanjit. Prasanjit, you talked about Clariant IGL taking a net zero point of view for 2050. Can you give us a very top view, like how that net zero kind of picture looks like? What will happen in those first short-term years and then mid, and what are those hardest challenges that you are keeping it reserved for later years? And are there any asks, anything that the ecosystem, like between IIM Kashipur, pManifold, evACAD, the ambition and the intent is to really work with the industries to grow that ecosystem and help it forward. So what are those asks, if any, Prasanjit, for you to achieve your goals by 2050?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rahulji. See, during my last session, I have already told that the number one target is scope 1 and scope 2 emission. So we are slowly converting our portfolio from fossil waste to bio-based. Means products are being manufactured at Kashipur, whatever global demands are there. So slowly those products are transferred, or we can say started manufacturing at Kashipur. So if we start manufacturing in Kashipur, so what will happen? Since the raw materials are produced from the plant origin, so indirectly increasing the portfolio or increasing the production of product at Kashipur, we are indirectly increasing the plantation. So in that way, whatever emission are coming from our manufacturing process, so that can be consumed by the plantation, what we are promoting indirectly by converting the portfolio from fossil to bio, number one. Number two, during our manufacturing process, I have told that green electricity and green steam we are consuming. Although today the green electricity cost is comparatively higher than the cost of the electricity which is produced with fossil. So the way the government has taken the initiative for the production of solar electricity, wind electricity, and hydel electricity. So we are very much hopeful or optimistic that in coming days or coming future, near future, the generation of green electricity would be quite enough, and it would be competitive with the fossil based electricity. And by this way, the electricity consumed in our production process, the green electricity, which is at present increasing the raw material cost or manufacturing cost of the product. So that will go down and we will be competitive with the fossil based product. And yeah. Can
And
do,
the second part of question, Prasanjit, like
yeah,
any asks in terms of any specific technology
yeah.
or financing or any policy ask which you think will augment or accelerate your commitments?
Yes, of course, if the government has taken an initiative to use the plant origin raw materials for chemical industry, the way the government has taken initiative to incorporate bioethanol into petrol. So in that way, if they provide some quota, suppose one industry, they are using 1,000 ton of chemicals. If they provide a quota that's out of 1,000 ton, 50% you have to use bio-waste and 50% you can go for fossil waste. So in that way, if government can uh, decide a policy, and that policy will certainly help us, certainly pressurize the consumer to use the bio or bio-waste product, 100% bio, to maintain the sustainability goal. And we are also this message we are providing to our shop floor level, and we are creating more and more green belt, operational green belt, black belt, yellow belt, so that we can provide them the project to reduce the steam, reduce the electricity at the shop floor level during manufacturing. So we can reduce the consumption also, and by this way we can reduce the price of the product. It becomes competitive with the fossil waste.
Got it. So some policies to kind of drive this green
Correct.
procurement in
Correct.
chemicals will
Correct.
be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Isha.
I'd like to take some questions which are coming from the audience also.
Mhm.
This is an open question. Anyone from who would like to answer this? So people are asking that CCU plants. There are only 3 CCU plants which are operational in India as of now, and they are also more at pilot scale. So, do you think CCUS is really a decarbonization option for hard to abate sector like cement and steel? And it is very expensive also. So, realistically, how do you see commercial scale adoption of CCUS? So, that's one part of the question. And another is more focused on how do you really handle the scope 3 emissions when it comes to what targets do you set, what strategies do you set when it comes to manufacturing, and how the carbon credit is really coming into your business purview. So that's an open question. Asked more for steel and cement, but yes, Naveen.
Maybe Isha, one more question. I think it was on the efficiency. I think if you can maybe take it on the second round, I think on the efficiency, that what is the upside on the efficiency. But maybe taking your question, I just want to give my views on what you have just said on the carbon capture utilization. Of course, it is definitely on the base price. Like if you just take example of steel, if we go for a CCU basically deployment, our cost of production will go by close to 200 odd dollars per ton, right? Which is like close to 25% of our cost of production today, right? But as we move forward, there are two, three things I want to be very, very clear on this CCUS part. First is about, because all these are like CO2 based derivatives, chemical derivatives. And what are these chemicals? The chemicals are ethanol, methanol, sustainable aviation fuel, urea, right? And India, when we talk about as a country, in across all these chemicals, India is net importer, right? India is net importer. So there is a base case, business case, when we talk about these products, because we are importing right now, and coupled with the this crisis, the supply chain crisis that we see across West Asia, across Red Sea, across Ukraine-Russia war, it just amplify. Just to give you an example, we used to import urea at $450 per ton. During this war, it went to $950 per ton, almost double, right? So within a span of 2 odd months, right? 3 odd months, almost double. So it definitely start hitting in terms of the current account deficit, in terms of the forex and all these things. So that's why going for these chemicals definitely makes sense, and also it is also upside. Like when we talk about, like, as a company, I want to just give you this example that in Angul, Odisha, we are creating world's largest carbon capture utilization valleys, CCU valleys. We are capturing 3,600 tons per day of carbon capture. Since there were no scalable technologies and business cases, now there are business cases. So we want to now utilize this CO2, make close to 40% of this quantity making fuels and chemicals. Then close to 20% of this we are going to make polycarbonates, like sodium, basically ammonium carbonate, right? Ammonium bicarbonate, ABC, and soda ash. And 20% of this quantity will go to make aggregates. Slag is a byproduct, as I was talking about, coming from electric arc furnace, and captured CO2 aggregate is a very good business case. And the fourth one is about making blue synthesis gas with the help of co-electrolysis. So this is where we are focusing, and once we exhaust these four streams, the remaining CO2 will go below the surface. So I think there is definitely a business case. If the participant asked this question, that if CCUS is the only silver bullet, that is not. But if you have to make your playbook, then CCU has to be part of that playbook.
And it fits into the net zero strategy for Jindal,
Yeah.
also in economics in the long term, you are
Absolutely.
saying,
And
right?
now with this CCTS coming in, and with this carbon credits coming in, and along with the support, the viability gap funding, the just announced 20,000 crores of fund, that is the policy that is going to be announced in next 1.5, 2 odd months, by Ministry of Power. I think that will just add momentum to this overall story.
Very nice. I think Lovish can add also his views on CCUS, their investigation for cement, but also on the carbon credit side, Navesh, like what part of your business you are able to support through carbon credits generation?
Okay. First, I second to what Mr. Alawat mentioned. Yes. So from a technical point of view, I don't think so. CCU from a technical point of view is under the question mark. I think the pilots and whatever demos which are happening outside, they aren't showing any kind of a closed door from that angle. So that's not a problem. But again, the major challenge comes around the financing part of it. Now, if I have to specifically talk about the sector, cement is one of the cheapest commodity on this earth. What, 4 rupees a kg or 3 rupees a kg? I don't know if there's any other product which is cheaper than cement. So plus I generate close to 60% of emissions, which are process emission, and for which, as of now, if I continue through limestone mode of cement production, CCU or CCUS is the option for me. While playbook is big, but from a cement point of view, CCU is being considered as one of the potent solution. When everything is exhausted, then this comes in. So we are quite openly evaluating the CCU or CCUS option as a part of our strategy for decarbonization. But basis whatever financial calculation and estimation we have done so far, cement company as a whole may not be in a position to afford it. For various reasons, and Mr. Alawat also gave reference to CCU mission and the funding of 20,000 CR. Although considering the volume which gets generated, I'm not sure whether this funding is even sufficient for cement sector alone. Forget about other hard-to-abate sector. So that is a separate matter. But at least from a demo and pilot view, if it can demonstrate that the ecosystem, how ecosystem looks like when the carbon capture and the utilization is integrated as a solution. So we are hopeful to get that kind of information. And from a financing also, if I have to tell them, even with direct grant also, it won't work. If you look at all major projects being done by Breivik in Norway, they are almost completely funded by the public funds. So I don't see, I'm not looking very, very hopeful that alone. So we may have to look at some kind of a blended option, which is a mixture of, grants, viability gap funding, then you have some kind of input credit benefits, accelerated depreciation, and then also last but not the least, there has to be a market for the product which gets developed out of carbon capture. We don't want to get entangled with the complexity of whether this product is considered as green because the CO2 is a biogenic resource or a biogenic resource. Now, at the end of the day, I put everything and then I have to prove biogenic and abiogenic. That itself complicate. But I know these are the sophistication with European Union introduces, and they do it for good reason. But for a country like India, we can't get into that kind of complexity. So government needs to have an absolute clarity on those policies. So market for that thing has to be developed when these things get materialized in order to improve the ROI. Coming to the carbon credits part, Rahul, as of now, we have not been very fortunate to get any specific funding or the income coming from the carbon credits. Whatever projects we did, keeping voluntary carbon credits in mind, and we have accrued quite a lot with RE projects and similar through Vera and Gold Standard. In fact, the cost of monetizing those credits are more than the actual cost of the credit. So I have my all the more challenges in that direction. But having said that, if the CCTS scheme is implemented in the right letter and spirit, the learnings from PAT scheme are integrated, the pricing will be regulated, market stability mechanism will put in place. I'm quite hopeful the CCTS can definitely give us sufficient breathing space to do our calculation, which takes into account a little bit more risk. But in the absence of that, it's going to be difficult. We have some green shots in the form of 6.2 and 6.4. But again, till it gets materialized, those things looks quite good at paper. So we are just keeping our fingers crossed, trying to get our knowledge correct as far as the technological feasibility is considered, evaluating multiple various pathways, which Naveen mentioned. So we are presently doing that. But just to summarize, CCU does appear in a very strategic manner as far as the process emissions are considered for sure.
Sure, sure. I think that is good. Article 6, I think, is still evolving. India is going fairly slow. In fact, we are also watching very carefully, like we have bundled in some programs as program of activities, which we believe will really help spread our RE even more faster. But I think, yes, government has to take some of those calls to allow those ITMOs to kind of start getting transacted and make carbon credits more viable for us, Lavish.
That's right.
I think Isha is reminding all of us with the time check. Just want to kind of come back to Shyamji, like Morbi is really one of very interesting industrial sector, like almost 90% of ceramics tiles are getting manufactured, 90% of exports also coming from Morbi. One interesting fact I learned from him was like the bigger players, the Simpolo, the Kajaria, the Somanis, they are only forming less than 10% of Morbi, right? So it is those MSMEs there in thousands of numbers. So I think Shyamji and maybe even others can pitch in. Do you believe that some of you industry in the market leading roles act as really lighthouse? Some of the technologies and experiments that you develop, do you think are transferable in some learning form to small players? Like India is 50% the secondary steel producers. So a lot of those learnings from Jindal can flow down. A lot of learnings from Dalmia can go down. Similarly for IGL, like what Prasanjit was saying, do we believe that it is kind of ready for those learnings to move to the small MSMEs? Shyamji, first, I would like to understand for you, Morbi, like, can we have you as a change maker in Morbi and as IIM Kashipur, as pManifold, evACAD? We really want to commit ourselves to work with you to make you successful and also
Yes,
work
yes,
like how
Rahulji.
those things can work forward.
Yes, thank you. Rahulji, we are doing some in the ceramic industry because there is the more big of the ceramic industry. and we are working the support in the some of the for the decarbonization and the sustainability, and we are itself doing the some efforts how to reduce our energy consumptions. So we are doing in the suppose the waste heat recovery, efficient kiln, and the better insulation, automation, and we are going towards the biomass. So these are the options so that it can be beneficial for the ceramic tiles industry, and it can be become the benchmark for industry and beneficial for our domestic users, and as well as we can export the material because the sustainability now the peoples in the European and the US, they are also required us, have you the certificate, are you doing the work in the sustainability? So this is the big questions for us. So before that in the ceramic industry they are not aware about that. Now we have started the KPI, KRA of our employees. So we are creating the culture so that can be continued. That can be the part of our environment, and we are doing to in the direction so that there the sometimes this is not the matter of the economy, and this is not the matter of the profit, and being a tiles industry, and we are making the part of our process so that it can be considered that the tiles industry is going that way, because this is also the part of the construction industries. So we are going in that direction, and we hope that will be beneficial for our industry.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Shyamji. And
Great,
anyone
Shyamji.
else?
Coming back to
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
point
please.
Rahul mentioned,
Please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah, Naveenji wants to go ahead, but just before he goes ahead, so Shyamji, today is a very auspicious day, 17 years of pManifold and evACAD. Sort of very closely, sort of also IIM Kashipur has existed now for almost 16 years. So, so it's a very interesting time for us. And, we are trying to set up a net zero intelligence lab at IIM Kashipur.
Right.
Lab is exactly, that these problems, these issues that we are discussing, can there be a body of knowledge, sort of a unit which rise and bring together academia and industry to really, solve these issues? Yeah, and sort of, because obviously what we are seeing is that it's not that we have all of these issues at one place, right? So we need to work on them. There's a lot of knowledge which already exists. There's a lot of experience that exists, and yet there are challenges. So sort of that's where we are trying to position the net zero in the intelligence lab. And IIM Kashipur actively seeks the support of you all to join this initiative of the lab and make commitments to it. One of the first things from this lab we have already started is this postgraduate executive program on net zero strategy and sustainability leadership. The first cohort is about to complete the program. A set of very senior, sort of industry functionaries who are part of this thing across a very varied, sort of set. So it's not something where we can say, okay, most of the learners come from this industry or that industry. Sort of it's a very varied set. Including government, private organizations, and sort of with the sort of there. So those of you who are in the webinar, and Kashipur, proudly invites you that, sort of you can associate with us. And, also this program is going to lead to an alumni status for IIM Kashipur. And with that, Naveenji, you were waiting to say something. Back to you.
No, so just want to add what Shyamji has just said, about MSMEs, and Rahulji has just asked this question. I think it is actually very important. If the tier one has to move, they have to take the tier two, tier three, manufacturer along. And like if you talk about the steel sector alone, 25 to 30% of the steel is being manufactured by the SMEs, and this is actually one of the main reason why you see basically. A lag in terms of the policy advocacy, in terms of implementing these ideas like CCTS on the ground, CCUS, because all these things, the bulldogs of that sector, they will move forward, right? There won't be any issues. But the guys who are tier two to where they are not the ecosystem, the infrastructure is not that great. Where they are still battling with getting the main building blocks ready at their workshop. So moving to that trajectory of sustainability and net zero, I think it is going to take a bit of time. But the good news is that they have also settled with this with this mindset that no, I think there is no escape route around this. If they have to export, then they have to be CBAM compliant. They have to basically do their baseline emission calculation. They have to come up with, if they are listed entity, they have to come up with this BRSR report. So I think India, I think as a whole, country as a whole, where you have good 25 to 40 odd percentage, the heavy lifting is being done with these SMEs. It is very, very important that you have to bring this prosperity, this education, this hand holding across the value chain, rather than being specific, getting your house in order and just sitting on your chair with the hope that the other guys will do the work themselves. So the education, in terms of the knowledge transfer, in terms of whatever, so no more it is going to be a competition part of it. We have to move from competition to competition. So it is all about hand holding, collaboration, giving back, learning, and that is how I think you will move forward.
I mean, I think you very well said. I think with IIM Kashipur, this lab, Net Zero Intel Lab, uh, it's already kind of founded with our first cohort already learning. Some of the learners are coming from all the panelist companies. And two initiatives of that lab, I think, which stands out. Like one, we would want founding members like yours kind of helping with clear problem statements that you are looking for answers in next 2 or 3 years of run, right? Which takes that kind of a business priority around net zero. I think we would want to start handling those kind of questions and start working with other industry members and solutions to kind of see what solutions can come and come back to you, right? So as the founding members, bring us those problem statements of your industry. That is point one. Second, I think this initiative that you talked, Naveen and Shamji and others supported, like how those learnings and best practices, which by being the major industry holders with your capital support, you were able to do R&D and learn how some of those right learnings can start penetrating into the industry, into the MSMEs. So this can be another second initiative which this Intel Lab can really kind of work towards with all the four sectors that you are representing. So I think this can become our first activities to really ensure that some of these learnings go deeper and some of the solutions, both in terms of technology, in terms of financing, that can be bring. And of course, the skilling initiative through this net zero program is already happening. If you would want to bring your champions to work in this program, learn in this program, interact with the peers in industry, and while learning, then doing those live consulting projects, solving the problem, which is very important to you as part of this lab and also as part of this cohort. So I think those are some working by doing kind of a academic rigor, right? Plus applied industry with pManifold, evACAD integrations, and your industry support where those testing of solutions can happen. I think this is the new way of new net zero ecosystem that we are attempting to build. So, any reflections by anyone, Navesh, would really encourage.
No, I think I'm quite glad to hear about this initiative. And of course, the real solution can only come with multiple perspective working together. Industry also, because for them, many a time this seems to be an side activity. Therefore, the right kind of mind and right kind of bandwidth do not come. So that's where I see multipolarity of the thought process when they come together. I'm sure a couple of problems which upfront seems difficult are easy to solve with multiplicity, and such initiative whereby in the academic and industry they come together and develop a solution under a incubation kind of a project, if I have to say it that way. I think that will definitely go a long way. And I think we all know that this has been also one of the biggest area where the government is also focusing, that where do we bring academics, research and industry together so that we can develop the solution for future and we achieve those solution much faster. So I think Rahul, Professor, Weber and Ishan. I think this is a great initiative, and we hope to join hands with you in some manner or other and bring our experience and also learn from your initiative so that both as a company and at a sectoral level we can add value.
Thank you.
I'm overblown by the discussion. It was immensely educating. We learned so much. We saw the passion. The passion was oozing from the screen also. And one of the questions which one of the learners had asked is that, okay, you are the champions, you are the pioneers, you are the people who are proactively, company with difference. You are proactively taking a step. How do we build that ecosystem? And Naveenji really brought it together. It's no more about a competition. It's more about how we work together. And in our own way, pManifold, evACAD, and IIM Kashipur are trying to really build that ecosystem in which we talk more about net zero. We talk about our best practices. We learn from the bad policies, like Lavish mentioned. We understand the policies are coming, but the cost is too high. We understand at times the cost is too high, the intent is right, but the market is not supporting. And we really have to come together across the value chain, policymakers, regulators, doers, consumers, to come up with the right solution, to brainstorm and find the solution. We might have to take a step back. We might have to, go back to that whiteboard again and again, but that really is important. The dialogue, understanding what really matters, and the course which you are seeing on the screen, the net zero lab, which Rahul, Professor Weber have been highlighting, and these kind of conversations are something we really want to bring more strongly. So I would really like to thank all the panelists. It has been an immense pleasure of being in your presence. Thank you so much for gathering in a short notice, taking out a valuable time. Some are on leave, some have some big commitments going around, but you really made a time, and this is really helpful. Thank you so much. Wishing all a very good evening. Hope we continue with this conversation. Please write to us more ideas, more problem statement, and the areas where we can collaborate. Looking forward to more such discussions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
everyone.